You're in the place where mysteries and the missing meet, where conspiracies lurk around every corner. Welcome to the Deep, Dark Truth.
Welcome back to the Deep, Dark Truth. I'm Mo.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Mikey.
And today we are finally covering the Denver Airport.
Officially. Mo and I have been covering this for, we've known each other since 2012.
Yeah, off show for years.
Yeah, we did also, I think it got mentioned in the very first episode, like our introductory episodes. But yeah, I'm excited. It's actually been requested a couple times on our survey. Speaking of which, please take a moment to subscribe, and you can check out all of our sources and our survey for different tips and things you want to see in this upcoming year in the show notes in our link tree.
Yeah, that.
So I know of Denver Airport, but I'm not as familiar as you two, so this will be fun for me.
I'm going to go through a couple of the talking points that are frequently brought up, and then we'll discuss the conspiracies. So the Denver International Airport had finally finished construction in February of 1995. It took an extra 16 months than originally intended to build and cost about $4.8 billion.
Wow.
Billion?
Billion with a
Is that normal?
B.
How much did it cost to
crazy.
make the Phoenix airport?
Is Denver kind of like a mecca, the whole...
So it is an international airport, but there are several, like Detroit, Chicago.
It's centrally located to the whole west side.
One of the things that happened is during the time there was a strike by metal workers that happened during the course of this building being completed. A lot of underground tunnels, which was originally intended to just be an advanced rail and baggage handling system. A couple different articles that I read said that most of those tunnels that were originally meant for baggage handling are out of commission, that they're not used for that, which is one of the points a lot of people bring up, but we'll circle back to it. It contains the longest runway in America, which is about 16,000 feet long, which means that a lot of larger aircraft can land safely. And the runway is 6,000 or so feet longer than the longest runway at Denver's former airport, which was called Stapleton International. So one of the things that I think is really interesting that I feel like I haven't heard a whole lot of people talk about, we're going to be discussing a lot of things. We're going to be discussing art. We're going to be discussing statues. We're going to be discussing these tunnel system, obviously, and how close the Denver International Airport is to some other things. But what a lot of people don't mention is that the conspiracies about Denver International Airport, they started before this airport was ever finished. Before the art, before the gargoyles, before any of that was installed. People were already having questions because of how much they were digging underground, first of all, and second of all, how much the project was costing and why it was taking so long. So while a lot of the things that we're going to be discussing, like the art, are kind of just questionable, it really does show that the conspiracy was like deep-seated before any of the fripperies that we're going to talk about. So they went literal billions of dollars over budget. They switched contractors a number of times, and that led many people to also question if those contractors themselves even know the full scope of the build, because they were oftentimes building new sections that were separate from the previous already built sections. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The way that I was kind of thinking of it was like a Rose Red / Winchester mansion, mystery mansion type of feeling, where it's like, okay, well, you're going to build this. You're the only person knows that this was built. But then I'm going to hire this other person and they're going to dig a tunnel. And then I'm going to hire another person to connect those tunnels or this part of the airport to that. And so none of these companies, or possibly none of these companies, ever knew the full scope of the project in its entirety because they were just doing a little bits and pieces separately. So the idea is, was this because of this strike? Was it because of different problems with contractors? Or was it very intentional?
My guess is money laundering / fraud. I'm just throwing that out there.
That's an interesting one that isn't brought up very much, honestly. Surprisingly, not very much.
It's billions of dollars for an airport. This feels like.
So while we're talking about the buildings, we obviously have to talk about this tunnel system that was made for this advanced baggage system, which leads us to talk about different nearby military installations.
Fun fact, listeners, the most expensive airport I found according to this random list at therichest.com cost $20 billion. It's the Kansai International Airport in Osaka, Japan, but that is on an artificial island in the ocean, so that sort of ups the price of anything.
Yeah, there was a few that I found.
And when was that airport built?
Hong Kong airport is $20 billion as well.
Just because of inflation is one of the reasons that I'm curious, because this is built in 1995. So something that's built for that amount of money now.
94.
Okay. The Denver Airport is approximately 77 or so miles from the nearby Cheyenne Mountain Complex.
Stargate.
So Cheyenne Mountain Complex is a NORAD facility, but now it is considered a Space Force installation. Man, the future's wild. But a lot of people believed that these underground tunnels could possibly have different members of Congress and other people in the government, the Supreme Court, be able to fly in to Denver International Airport and travel to the Cheyenne Mountain Complex underground in the midst of some disaster or catastrophe or terrorist attack, etc. They believed that this was purposefully linked.
It's like, if you're doing it, it's right there. You might as well. If you're spending $4 billion on an airport, you might as well dig a big tunnel.
It really is. And we're going to talk a little bit about bunkers and bunkers that have been decommissioned and why they were decommissioned, because they were used. because people found out about them in a few minutes when we talk about the airport itself and how they respond to these conspiracy theories. But before we get there, let's talk about some of the creepy elements, we'll say, of the Denver International Airport and why something that probably would have just been a conspiracy that was about the Cheyenne Mountain Complex and underground bunkers and Cold War era espionage type of things and transformed into Illuminati, etc., type of conspiracies. Outside of the airport, there is a 32-foot tall statue officially named Mustang. Street name, Blucifer. Street name is the only, the most accurate representation. I feel like it's not even a nickname. Street name, no. Blucifer. Blucifer, in addition to looking terrifying and looking like a lot of people say that they believe that it's like this Illuminati connection to one of the four horses of the apocalypse. If there ever was a statue of an apocalypse horse, this is the statue of the apocalypse horse. There is no other way to put it.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I haven't decided whose. I guess War. I've decided that War rides this horse.
I think I'd go Pestilence. / whatever you want to call it.
In addition to Blucifer just looking very creepy for something that sits outside an airport, there is the matter of Blucifer killed its own creator. Luis Jimenez was the original artist, and a piece of the statue came loose while it was hoisted several feet in the air, and it severed the artery in his leg in his studio while being put together. He was 65 years old at the time. Blucifer was always intended to go to the airport. I had a lot of questions about how did this statue get from on the ground, having severed this artery, and I cannot imagine what that scene looked like, to actually at the airport. His family fixed it up, and they are the ones that installed the red eyes when they gave it to the airport. There was a really saccharine reason for these red eyes that I just don't remember because I was too overwhelmed by everything else.
Because it murdered someone and its eyes are glowing with the blood of its creator.
It is in an article in the sources. Maybe Future Mo can find it. Future Mo.
Cutting in. Supposedly, the red eyes are for the neon workshop that he apprenticed with his father when he was young. The glowing eyes are a homage to his father's workshop and, the gates of hell.
And also that.
What?
I don't know why glowing red eyes is how you want to honor your father.
Glowing red eyes in every story, movie, fairy tale I have ever read is never good.
So Blucifer is one of the many art installations that are found all around the airport. Some of them raise a few eyebrows, but the reason that there is so much art in the airport is because before the Denver International Airport was built, city officials had some type of decision come down that 1% of the total cost of every big construction project that ever happened in Denver would then be put aside for public art. Since the airport initially cost $3 billion or so that's like $30 million. It's like $10 million per billion.
That's a lot.
There was naturally a metric fuck ton of money to be put towards public art. That is the official number that I have decided.
You've decided.
So they could then put that money towards a lot of these art installations, such as Blucifer. They also did different gargoyles that were commissioned, and there were also a number of murals. So these murals then became a big piece of this conspiracy puzzle. Both of these murals that raised a lot of eyebrows were done by Leo Tanguma. One of them is called In Peace and Harmony with Nature, and the idea is that painting is supposed to symbolize environmental destruction versus environmental healing. And that is located in baggage claim. There's also another mural called Children of the World Dream in Peace. That is a war versus peace theme, which is in the other side of the baggage claim area. Both of these murals, though, have a lot of disturbing themes. Obviously, the war versus peace is going to have that, but there is a little girl in a coffin in one of the paintings.
Classic. These are highly political.
And the thing is that this is good art. Obviously, all art is subjective, but I would consider this thought-provoking art. It is very political in nature in terms of the different themes of togetherness and oneness with the world versus death and destruction.
And children carrying swords wrapped in countries' flags.
Yeah, for being in an airport where there are actual literal children that will see this, to look over and see a little girl in a coffin, it's a very strange thing. There's also this man in a gas mask. He has like a scimitar in one hand.
Where are we looking? Which one? There's so much to look at.
Children of the World Dream of Peace. It is the one with the gas mask and like the AK-47 that has like a knife at the end of it, like the guns in The Walking Dead.
Oh, the big one that's just that guy.
Him surrounded by dead elderly people and children. One of the children is huddling a stuffed animal, and there is an upside down dove. There is a lot of provocative imagery, not just in that, but in the symbolism of different things, which art obviously contains symbolism most of the time, but then you have this other element of how out of place it is that just adds to all of the different Illuminati conspiracies.
And also, this one, is it the sword? I think the sword is slashing, and that's what the rainbow is. It has a rainbow, and it looks as if the sword has slashed, and that slash behind it is rainbow.
Yes.
Listeners, you have to go look at this.
So the link is in our show notes, but you can obviously Google Denver Airport murals and or Denver Airport Leo, Leo, Tanguma, Tanguma murals. You have the one side of this man in this gas mask with this gun and with this scimitar.
Feels very Cold War, end of the world.
Yeah, very Cold War-esque. The next section of that mural is then all of these children huddling up all of these swords, and then the guy with the gas mask on is dead on the ground in like a very Scream-looking pose, and he has two doves on him.
These murals are weird.
They really are.
They're just weird.
There's even a letter within this mural. It says, "I was once a little child who longed for other worlds, but I am no more a child, for I have known fear. I have learned to hate. How tragic then is youth, which lives with enemies, with gallows ropes. Yet I still believe I only sleep today, and that I will wake up a child again and start to laugh and play." It's basically like the most depressing art you can think of.
This is really good.
It is really good in a post-apocalyptic world in an
Why is
airport.
this here in an airport? I know about this. I've looked at this before, but then you forget.
You forget all of the little details, like the letter and the dead child in a coffin.
The one where the army guy is dead, they're all carrying swords, but then in the middle, they're like breaking his scimitar sword. They're like smashing it with a hammer and bending it. It's like the centerpiece.
So the art, along with the Lucifer statue, there's also some gargoyles that are over baggage claim areas. These different aspects that just seem very, very strange choices for an airport that is like a family place.
It's weird. I could almost get behind that aesthetic. It's the murals that are creeping me out. Like, when you look close, there are so many weird details.
This is like proper art. This is museum art in the airport.
That artist did have an art installation in some museum also in Denver.
And I mean, Phoenix Airport, Sky Harbor, does have art in there. It's like a little baby museum when you're walking around. But it's not political. It's like, here's a pretty mountain. Here's a view of a cactus.
Detroit, we have the weird Motown tunnel with all the lights.
Yeah.
The gargoyles, I think, are actually pretty rad. I view gargoyles as extremely artsy that can be in an upper class way, even though that they're weird, creepy little goblin things. Going into a extremely rich neighborhood, how many gargoyles are you going to see? That type of thing.
Yeah, they don't raise any red flags for me instantly because it's just like, oh yeah, Gothic churches. Gothic in the old sense.
Absolutely.
Rich people love making things like churches.
So now we're going to get into this capstone. There is a capstone that is covering a time capsule. It reads Denver International Airport. The time capsule beneath this stone contains messages and memorabilia to the people of Colorado in 2094. So 2094 is the date that this is set to be reopened. It then has the Freemasons symbol, the scale and compass, and it says that it is a dedications capstone that was laid by the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, F&AM of Colorado and jurisdiction, and the most wonderful Grand Lodge of AF and AM of Colorado, along with their names. They are both Grand Masters of two separate Mason lodges.
Interesting.
And this is where we then circle back, of course, to the Illuminati and the New World Order, because it says March 19th, 1994, New World Airport Commission contributors, and has a list of people. And some of them are like Zimmerman Metals, a firm of architects, people that contributed in some way to the airport.
We made big donations.
However, the New World Airport Commission does not exist and has never existed.
Money laundering and fraud.
There was never any official meetings. There wasn't an official LLC. There wasn't an official anything. All of the articles I read, it seemed like no one knows how or why. This was not that long ago. Somebody had to put in the order for this capstone. Is that just something that they tacked on? They just called it to make it sound fancy when they did the capstone? What does it mean?
Did they do it just for literally shits and
respect
giggles?
that.
I would respect that too.
You could ask, that's what we would do if we were commissioned for this fancy rock.
We would do something, like an Easter egg or something to poke at or laugh about.
Just sounds
something
reasonable enough to not be too alarming, but just a little unreasonable enough to be an eyebrow raiser.
That's exactly what it is. There is, so to me, there isn't any huge red flags to this. I don't think there's any huge red flags. There's a lot of eyebrow raising moments though. And an airport commission, a New World Airport Commission that does not exist and has never existed, I don't understand. unless they just were like, oh, well, this is what we're going to call all the contributors, because it says New World Airport Commission contributors. So maybe they're like, we're going to call them that so that it sounds like it's a fancy title, so they feel good about helping us. But I would really like to talk to all of these companies and see if anyone ever said, oh, hey, you are a contributor to the New World Airport Commission.
If you or someone you know works for Zimmerman Metals, please reach out to us at our tip line
313-355-3411. Before we talk about what we think and get kind of a little deeper into the conspiracies, I also want to talk about bunkers. I do want to give 2 honorable mentions, I guess, because they're brought up frequently. I just really don't feel like entertaining them. One of them is people saying that somehow the airport is tied to Nazism because the shape of the airport very vaguely resembles a swastika.
You mean that really basic shape? If you're saying vaguely, then yeah, it's not a swastika, probably.
Well, and you have to think, like, the way that airport hangars have to go out from a building significantly pretty far, because that's how they're built, because they have to be able to have a large amount of space. So the terminals are going to come out from the building because each plane is parking at a terminal and having people come out. You can't just park a plane next to a building. So if you actually go and look at a lot of different airports, they are shaped in vaguely similar ways. If you have some amount of quote-unquote proof, a reason why you really believe this, call us, text us, email us, etc. The other thing is aliens. I don't remember exactly how everyone said aliens factored into this, but I was just like, there are so many other places. Peterson Air Base is like just down the road. It's a little hop, skip, and a jump. I don't think that anybody wants aliens to come to the airport or needs an airport to let the aliens know it's there or whatever other thing.
I mean, how else are you going to transport out these UFOs?
Yeah, so for the purposes of this episode, we won't be focusing on either of those things. Not because I don't believe that anti-Semitism exists, but because it's like, let's just calm down sometimes.
Also, it only looks like a swastika in, like, the building phase plans. The actual buildings now with modern pictures do not look swastika-y. The roads don't look swastika-y.
Totally, they don't. And I didn't get that from any of the murals either. I got, like, apocalyptic.
Yes,
like,
very much so.
Hidden messages. Cryptic. I didn't get white supremacy from there.
See, I didn't even get cryptic.
Very Cold War.
I got, this is what's gonna happen. Like, all these children are suffering while the world engages in war. This is the future you want for your children. Or this is what you're allowing to happen to other people's children. I felt it was very poignant. A lot of the imagery was a little bit more cryptic, but the overarching mural itself was like, punch you in the face with badness. Oh, are you having a bad day? Did you miss your flight? Well, look over here. I'll brighten your day right up.
Look at these dead children. Look at these living children carrying swords.
That was the most shocking to me. Like, something about the idea of children seeing this and there being a painted dead child feels way different to me for some reason than TV, which I guess it shouldn't. It's just a different medium of art. But to me, art is like a magnifying glass looking at us, and TV sometimes is for entertainment and entertainment only. Even though it can do that and has the ability to do that, to me, art is just such a direct reflection of seeing yourself in something that it just feels like an extra fucked up layer. Right. I'm very eloquent today.
Man, and in this one where the forest is on fire in the background, the centerpiece of the dead people, this is the same one as the little blonde girl is dead. The centerpiece of dead people is someone who is clearly Native American. She's holding a kachina, which is, I believe, Hopi and Navajo mostly. My region. Dene, not Navajo. But it's weirdly specific that there's this, the centerpiece is a Hopi woman probably holding a kachina while the forest is on fire in the background. It's
all of these things by themselves. They're just like little eyebrow raising things. But when you're taking the tunnels that people already were speculating on, thinking that they were either leading to Cheyenne Mountain or a separate bunker was being built, and then you enforce those things with the apocalyptic messages of these murals and symbols of Freemasons and all of these things, naturally you get this conspiracy breeding ground, which the airport itself acknowledges.
I mean, if you have your horse statue has glowing red eyes.
Well, yeah, but this is the thing. It's very strange. So in some ways, they indulge the conspiracies, but in other ways, they completely debunk them. So for example, flydenver.com, it talks about different conspiracies. It was for the 25th anniversary. Set up this conspiracy page, like a splash page. And it says, you may or may not have heard, Den's got some secrets. It goes on to say the conspiracy and then kind of debunking those conspiracies. But there are lots of things that they don't address. It's very confusing. So, for example, the New World Order built the airport. That's the conspiracy. But then it says the reality is there's a world of underground tunnels beneath you with luggage carts, golf carts zipping around while the train to the gates runs parallel. And with the commotion of about 1,000 people working down below comes with serious traffic. Yields to the aliens. So they go ahead and address the tunnels, but the question wasn't about the tunnels. The question was, the New World Order built the airport, but then they never address who the hell is the New World Airport Commission? Who are they?
The New World is just these tunnels.
Yeah,
it's
really strange. They also have done different galleries, I guess, concerning the conspiracies. So it's like they're indulging it and then they're debunking it at the same time. They installed a gargoyle that talks. It appears that it's talking, but there's like a guy in a room with a camera that his whole job is just to watch people go by and talk to them.
That is the best job ever. I have found my calling.
He'll tell you about the conspiracies.
It's kind of cool.
It sounds really cool. So they're indulging in it in that way.
I need to go to the Denver airport and find that one.
So then it says Mustang, a beautiful statue, is cursed. Referred to as Lucifer and other names we can't print, Mustang is believed to be cursed due to it falling on the artist in 2006. It occurred 2 years before it was installed at DEN. So his family took 2 years to finish up this statue before it was then installed. Reality, he's big, he's blue, he's a sculpture. Though it's true that a portion of Mustang did fall onto him, causing his death, he was completed by his sons after he passed. The red eyes were a tribute to his father, who owned a neon sign shop in which he worked during his childhood. Today, Mustang remains a controversial piece of art and one of the most iconic pieces of the airport's collection, love it or hate it. I love it, honestly.
I mean, I would hardly call it. That's not very controversial.
I don't think it's controversial either. Along with everything else, the apocalyptic things, and to have this horse that looks like it's one of the fucking 4 horses of the apocalypse, people are like, yeah,
Yes.
This airport creeps me the fuck out. Naturally, it would.
Yeah.
There's literally a mural where the forest is on fire and the animals are like attacking the humans in red, and some of them they have in glasses because they're extinct and they're on display in the museum.
So this goes back to the one that we really didn't touch on, which was the aliens. Denver International Airport has extraterrestrial map coordinates. It gives then the latitude and longitude, saying that these coordinates were given to the humans by aliens in Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and they take you to Denver International Airport, and they say that's not true. It's actually 51 miles away. It's a movie. The gargoyles are sinister. In reality, the gargoyles love our passengers. Historically, gargoyles sit atop buildings to protect the site. Notre Denver by artist Terry Allen features 2 cast bronze gargoyles perched inside suitcases, watching over the east and west baggage claim areas. It's also interesting. So those 2 murals and the gargoyles, they're all in the baggage claim areas. They really want people to leave. Get in the car and go. There's too much traffic. Leave this cursed land.
Yeah.
I was thinking everyone's gonna see it. You have to go through baggage claim. You don't have a choice. Even if you're not picking up a bag, you're going through there to get out.
Other honorable mention that we're not going to focus on because I find it kind of silly. There are writings on the floor that say AU and AG. Those are obviously the atomic classifications of gold and silver on the periodic table.
Yeah.
So they were put there. It says it is representing Colorado's mining history, which makes a lot of sense. But even if there was some deeper meaning, I wouldn't consider them secret messages like you learn the periodic table in the 5th grade. This isn't a secret message. It just says silver and gold on the floor.
Yeah, it's not weird to use silver and gold in any capacity.
But is just one small thing that you can just add into the pot for fuck's sake, because the whole thing is designed to be that way.
It's just that this drop I would never notice if it wasn't for all the other drops. Whereas a giant blue horse with devil eyes...
I feel like somebody really needs to storyboard this, because Lucifer, the murals, and the tunnels together make sense. But now we have crossed into their secret messages that everyone can see and aren't secret at all. Like,
well, is it conspiracy or is it just art?
Okay, no los dos.
And of course, we have now arrived to conspiracy. The airport tunnels are connected to Cheyenne Mountain, thus creating a 120-mile escape route, which 120 miles is if you were to take the road, not necessarily if you were to tunnel under, by the way. I just want to...
That's an important distinction.
Reality. We wish, if you'd like to visit Cheyenne Mountain, we offer direct flights daily. However, the hardened command and control center that was built as a defense against long-range Soviet bombers during the height of the Cold War is now closed to the general public. That kind of brings us to bunkers. Well, first let me ask you guys, what so far is the most suspicious for you?
Suspicious?
Yeah. What is the one thing that you're like, okay, I'm really raising my eyebrows at this. This is the weirdest part of this.
It's the kid stuff for me.
Like the murals because there's children that are walking past there?
Yes. I can understand art and I can understand a sentiment or even a joke if it's all just one big joke or one big, this is what I wanted to do and so I did it. Whatever it may be. Or if it is something more, but it's the children, the death of children and the concepts that are in the drawings with the children and the murals for me.
It's the 4.8 billion price tag for me.
It's making me think that there's even larger conspiracy and that airports, like more than 30% of the people traveling in all airports at any given time in the entire world is participating in this like child pornography slave realm that nobody else knows exists.
Got deep. See, I think it's also the price tag for me. I mean, the murals, I understand them in terms of like me as an adult looking at art, but not for an airport in which children are attending.
Yeah.
Them changing companies so much. It's just kind of strange. And I think it's just because I'm naturally suspicious when it comes to bunkers and Cheyenne Mountain and all of these different places. Part of that is because of the Greenbrier. The Greenbrier is now a decommissioned bunker that is in Virginia, not very far outside of Washington, D.C. The hotel portion of this has had many presidents stay at it, which is part of the reason that the bunker was built there to begin with. In fact, the manager of the hotel had no idea that the bunker even existed for a very long time because there was a separate security staff that was separate from the hotel. So, like, he didn't oversee them. They were independently contracted.
That makes sense, but him not knowing about it.
Yes.
That's upsetting.
They called themselves the Forsyth Commission, and their job was to keep the bunker stocked with things that were fresh and keep it operational. It was decommissioned because there was an article written in 1992 that basically uncovered this bunker.
And they're like, oh shit, we have to erase everything.
Oh, fuck.
That's the thing. Now it's like a museum, so they couldn't erase it from existence, but it's decommissioned in the fact that a president is not going to go there. Also, George W. Bush on 9/11, he was taken to Stratcom, another bunker. That bunker is now decommissioned. Why? Because now everyone that cares to take any amount of time knows exactly where George W. Bush was on 9/11.
Yeah, but they're still creating a pattern, aren't they? Bunkers.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Hole in ground is safe.
Mount Weather, Raven Rock. These are all different bunkers that were set up to take care of hundreds, if not thousands of people. But the idea is once the public finds out about these bunkers or about tunnels going to bunkers or whatever, then they have to be decommissioned.
They're no longer secure.
They're no longer secure.
It's just a waste of space as far as safety is concerned.
There's so much weirdness that them playing into the weirdness feels like a red flag to me.
The double bluff.
Yeah, they're like denying it in one breath and then playing it into it in another and having this gargoyle talk to people and putting in new stuff and making splash pages, but then also like exhibits about the conspiracies. It's just strange. And I don't know if that's like a changeover, like who used to be in charge of the airport no longer is in charge of the airport. And maybe the change in hands is what's causing that. Or if they're just really not on it with their messaging. I find the tunnels compelling just because it's like they admit to have, 6 miles of tunnels? That's what they admit to.
I mean, if you're going to be building billions of dollars of structure, I'd throw in a freaking bunker too. I don't know.
So there's at least 6 underground tunnels, and just having underground tunnels isn't suspicious. Disney World is filled with underground tunnels.
My college campus has underground tunnels. Everyone needs to calm down.
Yeah, that's not what's suspicious, but how much money they were spending paired with the tunnels, paired with these are the ones we know about, plus the apocalyptic themes and all the other weird things. It's compelling. I don't think it's compelling in the alien sense or in the like actual going to bring about the apocalypse sense or even in the Lucifer's curse sense. I kind of love him, like, in a really creepy way. Like, I really wish I had one for my front yard. I genuinely find him cute in, like, an evil way, but, like, in a good way.
That's why you have the demon dog.
Yeah.
The blue is so jarring, and the red eyes are so jarring.
Okay, so this has gone over my head up until today, because sports ball, the Denver Broncos are the sport ball, and their color is blue. So, and it's named Mustang, but
yeah,
so
that's true.
That solved everything as far as the blue is concerned for me. But it also solves why is there a horse statue in the first place?
That's
Denver
true.
Broncos.
A horse statue or not, you painting it blue, you're deliberately painting it blue.
I get the story of the neon sign but still.
I don't get that one.
I mean, I understand wanting to have it glow, but like, I just feel like red was a very poor choice.
They're artists. You know what colors mean in our...
They installed the eyes after their dad died. I don't think that they were artists. I think they're...
Well, I mean, they completed it, so they had some...
Well, it was... He had made, like, the pieces. They just needed to be constructed, is what it sounds like.
Also, he's very veiny.
It looks scary, especially to a kid. That looks scary, I'm sure.
It depends on the kid.
Yeah, they might
some kids
cool.
it would terrify. Other kids are like, that's a puppy. By which I mean me. That's a big pupper right there.
The murals scream, look at me, kid. Like, look at me. Because they're so brightly colored and rainbow.
It's just with the kids looking at these murals. They're not gonna get it. The young ones aren't gonna understand what's dark there. And the older ones who do get it aren't really kids. They're teenagers. They're like, that's fucking dark.
I don't know. I think, like, my 9-year-old niece would understand and be like, why is that child dead? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, she's in a coffin with her hands folded. Any kid that's been to any funeral or seen a funeral on TV understands the implications that child is dead and in a coffin.
That's fair.
I feel like it'd be different if she was just on the ground with her eyes closed, like in the other mural. But in the case of the coffin, it's pretty apparent.
Yeah, but they're not like gory or anything. Mm-hmm. It's just she could be sleeping if she wasn't in the coffin. I don't know. I'm not bothered by kids seeing these.
That's true, but to me that just makes it weirder because the same effect could have been reached in a more subtle way that like adults would have picked up on and maybe children wouldn't have. That like that ambiguous, you're watching a rated R movie with your parents, but you're like 6 and you have no idea what the fuck is going on. Like in that kind of way.
It's like, I can just see I could see a 4-year-old, I could see an 8-year-old running over to those and just be like, what's that? What's that? What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Why is that like that? Why is it like, you show a kid like a Marvel movie poster, it's like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? You know?
Why is the horse blue?
Yeah.
Just to circle back on things that were in this scope as I was going through preparing for this episode, in concerning bunkers, I looked at this, I don't know, picture tour of this article that all had to do with Greenbrier and different pictures from inside of the bunker. And, talking about the food supply, talking about the codename Forsyth Associates and all of that. And I know a little bit about different bunkers from different Cold War era documentaries that I was forced to watch as a child.
And then chose to watch as an
adult, especially once we started talking about the Cold War and conspiracies involving the Cold War, in which case, if anybody tells you any government program happened during the Cold War, you should just believe it. Like, just believe it. Yeah. They were psychics employing psychics and employing people trying to get them to time travel, all kinds of crazy shit.
Hitmen,
Obama was
you
on the
name
moon.
it, spies, you name it, cat spies.
Yeah, cat spies,
drug warfare, bio warfare, you name it.
In the Greenbrier bunker, it was ready for use. I said earlier it was decommissioned in 1992. The Washington Post, actually, a reporter named Ted Gupp is the one that publicly revealed its existence. They have a picture of the Capitol building that's like huge, that takes up the majority of a wall. And also all of the chairs have speakers in the back of them. The idea was that Congress would then come to this room and they would be holding press briefings and they could pretend that they were still in Washington, D.C. Legitimately. So that they could pretend that they were still in Washington, D.C. and still hold Congress.
That better be a very high quality.
I mean, it's probably high quality for when it was done. So
right, we're in the 90s and 80s.
We're in the 90s, but President Eisenhower is actually the one that started the process to get the Greenbrier Hotel. So this very much is a Cold War era start of this. And it started because in 1953, Eisenhower addressed the United Nations. He was talking a lot about atomic warfare. And the bunker is far away enough from Washington, D.C., and it was frequented enough by different political figures that it would be able to hold that identity on its own and not be suspicious when government officials kind of swarmed down on it. There were several names for the secret bunker, but the one that I've seen the most was Project Greek Island, also Project X and Project Casper. It was also nicknamed, according to Coffee or Die, this source will be in the show notes, the Graceland of Cold War tourism now. It was a $14 million renovation project.
That's no airport.
Yes, but also we're talking about food for Congress for like 7,000 people. We're talking about support staff. We're talking about speakers to be able to hold Congress, microphones, everything that you could think of. They had a pharmacy stocked with antidepressants. They had, wait for it, a jail and 2 boxes of straitjackets in case quote-unquote congressman went bonkers, which was a quote from Dissent, which is a political magazine.
I mean, I'm laughing, but I guess this is some equivalent of this is happening right now.
Yeah, right.
Straitjackets, maybe not specifically, but like this absolutely exists.
But I think that's why for me this is the most believable part of the conspiracy, because the conspiracy is simply that the Denver airport, that the extra money that was needed was for the tunnel system to be able to tunnel the 77 miles to Cheyenne Mountain, or even closer. Who knows if they actually were supposed to, quote unquote, go to Cheyenne Mountain. That's just one of the conspiracy theories. But the idea that they have this runway that they make the largest runway in the United States, that it can house these big giant planes that were coming, because also we have to remember technology is moving. The sizes of planes are increasing, and specifically the size of Air Force One is increasing. It very specifically names different Boeing models that it can accommodate. So just interesting, the idea that this airport is built and it's state of the art and it's in the position that it is and it's so close to Cheyenne Mountain. Also, a Peterson Air Force Base, D1. There's a whole bunch of things in this area. Peterson Air Force Base and the Cheyenne Mountain complex are the most notable. To me, that's the simplest conspiracy theories. And I love the simple conspiracy theories. Truly.
Yeah, even if that's not true in this timeline, there's a timeline in which this is 100% fact. It's just how close are we to that timeline? It's feeling pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, we have regular hotels with bunkers underneath them. We have tons of bunkers decommissioned. Those are just the ones we know about. Some of them are Cold War era. Some of them are much, much newer. Also, I'm in the bunker part of the internet. Like, I frequently somehow find myself there, quote unquote, somehow.
Forced to watch as a child.
Right.
Where it's like, it's $1 million for a space in this bunker. Millionaires pool their money together to buy spaces in bunkers that have like 18 levels, and one of them's the hydroponics level, and one of them's the this level and the that level, and this is what you get when you buy in. It's its own industry, and I feel like it's going to increasingly become its own industry.
You heard it here, folks. Get in on the ground floor of the bunker industry.
So those are the overarching themes of the Denver airport and why conspiracy theorists are so obsessed with it.
I'm telling you, go look at the pictures. Right now, listener. Do it.
So let us know what you think. Let us know what conspiracy theory you vibed with the most. Correct us. Let us know other information if there's a conspiracy about the Denver airport that we didn't cover. And tune in next time when we talk about some things. Until next time, I'm Mo.
I'm Chip.
And I'm still Mikey.
You made me lose whatever stupid comment I had.
You just listened to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast. See you next time. And remember, your local cryptids want to meet you.